Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody today. Today will be the County Executive, Joni Mahoney, 2013 budget presentation to us. In advance, I want to thank all the members of her team and our team that have done some due diligence going into this. And County Executive, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chairman McMahon. Nice to see you. To the honorable members of the Onondaga County Legislature, thank you. I'm not sure that they wanted the sound up, did you? But thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2013 Onondaga County budget. The budget before you today is balanced, and it focuses on the priorities of Onondaga County and continues to position us for the future. I encourage you to study the budget carefully and ask any questions that you have. We have done our best to limit spending, but I assure you that if you have suggestions about how to go further, I'm willing to work with any of you on any proposal to cut recurring items from the budget. As has been the case each of the last several years, we began the budget process facing a gap. This year, it was $13.4 million. After much hard work, we were able to lower that number to $4.5 million. The continued gap is a reminder to us that our economy has not fully recovered. Much of the focus in recent budgets has been on lowering the property tax levy. The levy in 2010 was $184 million. In 2011, it was $154 million. And in 2012, it's $148 million. The property tax levy has been lowered significantly in the last few years, and the 2013 executive budget proposal maintains the levy at $148 million. While the county continues to earn excellent bond ratings, please note the language in the reports that have been issued by the rating agencies this year. In issuing its report about us, Moody's wrote that because of the new sales tax sharing formula and our reduction in the levy, the county is now more heavily reliant on sales tax. And I quote, "We view sales tax revenue as an economically sensitive revenue source subject to volatility," and said further that significant exposure to economically sensitive sales tax revenue is one of the challenges we face. We have a healthy balance between the property tax levy and sales tax revenue. We are where we need to be. You will see in my budget that we're projecting healthy growth in sales tax revenue in 2013. On top of the 4% growth that we're now projecting for 2012, this budget anticipates an additional 3.4%. But I do want to caution you that while we've seen an improvement in sales tax collections over the last few years, what we're seeing is not a steady trajectory upwards, but rather a rebound back from a steep decline. Our history shows steady, incremental growth in sales tax until that pattern was disrupted by the recession beginning in 2008. Since then, we've been working our way back to where we would have been had this country not experienced a recession. Going forward, we expect to see the growth level off and resume the trajectory that we've experienced for most of the last decade. Unfortunately, the $53 million in sales tax revenue that we've lost since 2009 is money that we will never recoup. Because we're now relying more heavily on sales tax, we have to be especially careful to make revenue projections as accurately as possible. This year, we took the added step of asking our comptroller, Bob Antonacci, to provide us with his own revenue projections. All of the revenue projections in this budget are well within the ranges provided by our comptroller. And I want to thank Bob Antonacci for the work that he and his staff did in helping us put those numbers together. I know that you as a legislature have been discussing the county's long-standing fund balance policy, and I believe a change in the methodology may be forthcoming. I appreciate your careful consideration of the policy, and I recognize, as you do, that those dollars belong to taxpayers. My budget proposal appropriates $4.5 million from the fund balance to close the budget gap. In addition, I'm also requesting that $9.9 million in fund balance be used for some necessary capital items. As I did last year, I've again compiled a list of non-recurring expenses which, if funded with fund balance and not added to the operating budget, can be a smart way to use fund balance to address specific needs without having to raise taxes. I appreciate Chairman McMahon's agreement to sponsor the fund balance resolution so that the legislature can consider these items alongside the budget. The other request I make today is that you commit $5 million in fund balance to a restricted fund only to be used to address looming significant increases in debt service. The county has undertaken significant capital improvements in the last year, and this commitment of resources will prepare us to pay the increases we now expect in debt service over the next several years. In my annual State of the County address in March, which I'm sure you've all committed to memory, I discussed the county's effort to advance an updated Sustainable Development Plan as a successor to the county's 2010 development plan. Our planning team and steering committee have done a great job putting together a new and forward-thinking long-term development plan that's focused on three key principles. One, let's fix the infrastructure that we have in our communities before we build new. Two, let's focus development in areas where services and infrastructure are readily available at little or no additional cost to our residents. And three, let's work to ensure that we preserve the character of the urban, suburban, and rural areas of our county. I look forward to continuing our healthy and robust debate on the merits of the plan in the months ahead, and I remain hopeful that this legislature will consider and adopt the Sustainable Development Plan as the county's official comprehensive plan by year's end. In an effort to advance the goals and ideals espoused within the plan, I propose to you, within my executive budget today, the creation of Onondaga County's Sustainability Pays program. In total, I recommend that we provide $6.5 million in financial assistance and incentives to help our towns and villages with their own long-term planning. To help them with their long-term planning, their infrastructure investments, and their smart growth strategies. And within the $6.5 million, I propose investing $1.5 million to help communities advance the Fix-It-First strategy of the Sustainable Development Plan. This funding would be in addition to the $4 million Village Infrastructure Fund, which over the past 2 years has helped to finance many infrastructure improvement projects in villages throughout the county. I also recommend establishing a $1 million fund with the Sustainability Pays program to support community efforts to preserve working farms in rural areas of Onondaga County. Ways and Means Chairman David Knapp graciously agreed to co-chair our recently formed Agriculture Council, and I look forward to working with him, his co-chairs, and council members to fine-tune our plan for these resources in the weeks ahead. Last year, we expanded the Save the Rain program to suburban communities. We awarded $3 million in suburban Save the Rain green infrastructure grants to 14 community projects in 12 towns and villages. All of these projects further our goal of handling stormwater in an environmentally conscious way at a greatly reduced cost to our taxpayers. Given the success of this program, I recommend that we continue to fund the Suburban Save the Rain program in 2013 with $2 million of the $6.5 million dedicated to our Sustainability Pays effort. While Sustainability Pays is directed at our suburban and rural communities, I continue to believe that our urban core is one of our greatest assets as a region. The city is vital to our efforts to attract economic investment in our county. Oftentimes, the county is making good roads better, while critical roads in the towns, villages, and city deteriorate because of political boundaries and tough fiscal times. Given our need to attract investment and business to our community, I propose appropriating $3.15 million for road improvements which support our economic development efforts in 2013. The budget I propose continues our effort to operate county government as efficiently and effectively as possible, but as I've said many times before, it's always valuable to have a fresh set of eyes. And we have a new opportunity this year to do just that. With several new members of the Onondaga County Legislature and a new county CFO, I believe the time is right to conduct a core services review, and I've proposed $250,000 for this effort. The review will inventory all of the programs, services, activities, and service levels the county provides by department to determine what is mandatory and what is discretionary, as well as what is provided at a higher than standard service level. At that point, we can have a renewed conversation about county operations and change going forward. When the state offered an early retirement incentive in 2010, Onondaga County opted in to the maximum extent allowable. 332 employees elected to participate, and as part of the agreement with the state, the county had to eliminate at least half of the vacated positions. We exceeded that requirement, and it made us a much leaner operation. The county saved 50% of the cost of the employees' salaries over 2 years and also saved enough to offset the entire cost of the early retirement services bill, which we paid in December of 2011. While it saved money, the process was not easy for the employees who were left behind to pick up the slack. We owe a debt of gratitude to the hardworking employees who worked even harder during the 2-year requirement, and we're now at a point where we can look at who is where and what staffing adjustments need to be made. You will see in the budget some new titles have been added and others have been unfunded. We will continue to analyze our needs and adjust accordingly, and I ask you for your support in this area. Salaries and benefits are one of the costliest areas of county government. In 2012, our fringe rate is 61.2%, so it's more important than ever for us to look for ways to address these high costs. In recent years, we've done many things, such as increasing the co-pays for management confidential employees, switching to a self-insured dental plan, and working with our prescription drug provider to increase the use of generic prescriptions, which have resulted in savings. And in 2013, we will do more. You will see that I've projected $2.5 million in savings from an anticipated redesign of our employee health care plans. Working with the Employee Health Care Coalition, we have identified potential opportunities for savings, and we're committed to realizing those savings as early as next year. And please let me highlight something you won't see in my proposed budget. There are no utility charges for Alliance Bank Stadium. The much-improved lease, which we negotiated with the chiefs and this legislature approved, removed the county's responsibility for utility charges at the stadium, which is a savings of $230,000 from the 2012 budget. This budget also includes a request that you support an outreach center for our veterans. The County Veterans Service Agency has been instrumental in the coordination of a multi-agency, multi-county initiative to establish a Veterans Outreach Center in our community that will substantially strengthen our support for veteran reintegration in Central New York. This center, patterned after a very successful center of the same type in Rochester, will create a physical location that will provide a coordinated, accessible, comprehensive network of support services for returning veterans and their families, and will essentially be a no-wrong-door concept to support the transition, reintegration, and education of both returning and existing veterans, as well as provide for the needs of military families during deployment. I ask you to support this effort by including the $25,000 I'm requesting in the 2013 budget for a Veterans Outreach Center in your final budget. This summer, the result of a year-long study of the economic impact of arts and cultural organizations was released. The results were impressive. Arts and cultural organizations generate $133.4 million in economic activity and help support over 5,000 jobs and more than $110 million in household income to local residents. More than 3.8 million people attended events sponsored by arts and cultural organizations during the year that was studied. It's important that we keep doing our part to support this critical economic and cultural component of our community, and I'm asking that you once again agree to provide 22% of our room occupancy tax revenues for these organizations. As part of my executive budget, I'm also submitting to you today the 5-year capital improvement plan. Last year, we improved how we plan for and execute our capital programming in Onondaga County. This year, we build upon that effort to plan and finance necessary and often overdue capital projects. I'm presenting to you today a plan which demonstrates where resources are needed, explains our strategy for deploying those resources, and provides a better sense of our fiscal needs for capital over the next 6 years. We've also made significant progress regarding Van Dyne. As you know, we conducted a request for qualifications and have been working toward a plan to transfer ownership of Van Dyne to an outside entity. We have focused on working with entities we feel strongly will maintain the high quality of care at Van Dyne and continue to provide a safety net for our community. We have signed a letter of intent with Upstate Services Group, and we anticipate the transition to take place on December 1st, 2013. One major focus of every budget message I've delivered in the past has been state mandates. And make no mistake about it, the bills New York State sends us still take every single dollar of property tax collected in Onondaga County and many of our sales tax dollars as well. But this past year did provide some relief we will see in the future. Governor Cuomo and the state legislature created a new pension tier that will provide long-term savings to municipalities. And the state began to assume its own responsibility and move toward shifting growth in Medicaid from counties back to the state. This is a welcome change that will provide some relief as it's phased in over the next several years. While we appreciate the steps in the right direction, this budget still includes over $600 million in gross Medicaid spending, $104.6 million of which will be borne by local taxpayers. And unfortunately, our bills for the current pension system continue to rise. We must appropriate $43 million in 2013. It's an increase of $3.3 million in just 1 year. In 2008, our pension bill was $15.4 million, and it is now $43 million. It has increased 179% in just 5 years. With so many costs continuing to escalate and solutions outside of our control, we must continue to be very cautious. We've worked hard in Onondaga County, and we've been rewarded for our unwillingness to spend beyond our means. We have one of the best municipal bond ratings in New York State. We have a healthy fund balance, and we are fiscally sound. We are not piercing the tax cap or talking about fiscal control boards like so many other municipalities in New York State. By working together, we can keep our footing and continue to move Onondaga County in the right direction. And now I'd like to turn things over to Steve Morgan, our Chief Fiscal Officer, who will walk you through more of the numbers. As you all know, this is Steve's first budget as the county CFO, but he's been through many budgets in his tenure in county government. He has certainly hit the ground running, and he's done a tremendous job in preparing the budget that I am submitting to you today. Thank you very much, and here's Steve.
Thanks, Joni. Thanks, Chairman McMahon. I'd like to spend a few minutes going through some of the financial aspects of the 2013 executive budget. We began this year's process with three cornerstone goals: to restrict spending, to stabilize property taxes, and to maintain a fiscally responsible fund balance. As you've heard, we've met those goals. The goal number one was to restrict spending. Our $1.25 billion gross budget is up by $28 million, or 2.3% over the 2012 modified budget. Our $998 million net budget, excluding interdepartmental charges, is up by 1.8%. Our budget growth would be considered restrained even at a time when inflation remains low at 2.2%. Our second goal was to stabilize property taxes. This budget is balanced without increasing our property tax levy. It will remain flat at $148.2 million. A flat levy usually means a lower tax rate. However, with property values only appreciating at 0.16%, our lowest rate since 1999, the countywide tax rate will only fall to $5.55 per thousand next year, a 1.8% drop. Our third goal was to maintain a fiscally responsible fund balance while still supporting the operating budget, funding one-time non-recurring expenditures, and committing a portion of fund balance to smooth future spikes in debt payments. We have allocated $4.5 million from our general fund balance to support the budget. Separate fund balance resolutions support $10 million from one-time projects aimed at supporting vehicle purchases, planning initiatives, and sustainability, among others. And $5 million will be committed for future debt service payments. As you can see from the graph, general fund debt service requirements are projected to increase by 61% over the next 4 years. We intend to use the committed fund balance to help address this spike. The county budget is complex, made up of thousands of moving pieces. However, this year is no different than most in that a few key factors explain much of the structural change in our budget. Salaries and wages are up by 2.5% due to wage and salary adjustments. This budget does not include funding for wage growth as a result of current contract negotiations. Employee benefit costs are slated to increase by 5%. As you can see, benefit costs have grown significantly over the last 4 years and now equal 62% of wages. Retirement costs alone have increased $27 million over that time period and now equal 20% of wages. For those of you who have been here for even a short while, you know that our greatest budget challenges are usually in the area of mandated costs. While we still continue to see increased need for our human service mandated programs, there's some stability and even reductions in certain areas. Our welfare numbers continue to rise as employment stays high and the economy recovers slowly. From almost 4,000 cases in 2000 to about 6,600 today. Along with the increase in our welfare caseloads comes continued increase in those families seeking help with daycare expenses while they look and prepare for work. The demand for subsidies is expected to increase 34% in 2013 when compared to 2008. As some of you may recall, we requested and you supported approximately $3 million in additional local dollars to support the daycare account in the 2012 budget. This budget includes another $1 million to support working families and those looking for work with daycare assistance. The news on the mandate front isn't all bad. The local cost of Medicaid is flat in 2013 at $104 million due to the calendar creep anomaly that has us paying more this year, along with the implementation of a hard cap that will eventually lock our Medicaid liability in at the 2014 level. You could see from the graph where our spending would be without these two factors. And we continue to see a drop in foster care cases and the number of kids placed in costly residential settings. Over the past 7 years, we've cut the caseload for this program by 35%. The $17.1 million local dollar cost of our preschool special education and early intervention program is flat. Unexpected stability in an area usually volatile in nature. The last major driver of this budget is the increased cost in the Department of Transportation. 4 factors explain this increase. funding for 115 miles of snow plowing that towns didn't agree to assume this year, and an additional 60 miles towns are directing back to the county. A contingency has been included to support towns with snow plowing when severe conditions occur. We will use the state severity factor to determine if additional compensation is necessary when harsh winter conditions are experienced. Debt service is projected to increase by approximately $1 million. The last contributing factor is the increase of $1.4 million in pay-as-you-go instead of borrowing for routine, recurring road work. These factors result in DOT's budget increasing by approximately $3.8 million. Let me try to put these pieces together and express those things in terms of local dollars. Three general areas represent $14.8 million in additional local dollar spending: labor costs, mandates, and transportation. Our 2013 budget proposes to close the gap created by this level of local dollars growth with revenues other than property tax. First, we've allocated $4.5 million from our general fund balance. Increased sales tax as a result of improving growth, and the last year the phase-in the sales tax sharing agreement is also supporting the budget. Budgeted at $245.5 million, sales tax is projected to grow at a rate of 4% this year and another 3.43% in 2013. However, as the county executive mentioned, sales tax is just now reaching levels expected had we not experienced the Great Recession. Not only was sales tax revenue of $53 million lost during this time, revenue that will never be recaptured, the levy also decreased by $31 million during the same time. The budget also calls for a 5% increase in our sewer unit charge, reflecting rising debt service, energy, and treatment chemical costs, as well as a 5% average increase in wholesale water rates charged by the Metropolitan Water Board. Before I conclude, I'd like to show you where our property and sales tax dollars go. Of the $395 million in local dollar spending proposed by this budget, fully 46%, or $180 million, goes to mandated programs: Medicaid, temporary assistance, foster care, pre-K, special ed, JD PINs, daycare, legal aid, and a few others. Maybe an even scarier number, our Medicaid costs alone represent 26% of our entire local dollar budget and 70% of our entire property tax levy. 31% of our local dollars, or about $122 million, are allocated to support public safety. And the largest single portion of that, some $58 million, goes to support the cost of detention: the Justice Center, the Jamesville Pen, and Hillbrook. 18% of our remaining local dollars pay for just 6 major county functions: transportation, parks, health, OCC, facilities, and a central library. And that leaves just 5% of the property and sales tax we bring in to pay for everything else in our budget: mental health, aging and youth, authorized agencies, finance, purchasing, and many more. Roughly 50 cents of every dollar we collect through property and sales tax goes to just 4 functions: Medicaid, detention, sheriff, police, civil, and road maintenance. So to the bottom line, the 2013 executive budget totals $1.25 billion, an increase of 2.3% over the 2012 budget as modified. Net spending, which excludes interdepartmental charges, is up 1.8%. Our levy is flat, and our countywide tax rate is $5.50 per 1,000, is the lowest in 50 years. While a flat levy and improving sales tax are encouraging, when we look at the multi-year projections, there's cause for concern. 2014 and 15 projected local dollar increases are significant as a result of labor costs, mandates, and scheduled debt service. These 3 items alone are projected to increase by 11% between 2012 and 15, resulting in a projected local dollar increase of $32 million. With that overview, I look forward to working with you as you review our executive budget plan. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive. Thank you, Steve. I can speak on behalf of all 17 members of the legislature. You've given us a lot to digest, and we will take the next few weeks to do that, and we look forward to working together. Meeting adjourned.